in the end.
Well, with DOA 1 being such a runaway hit, and pretty much saving Tecmo from itself for now, I think you can fill in the rest of the blank about what was next for the series. The same development team behind DOA began work on home ports shortly after its arcade release, and they also began planning for a sequel. With how well received the first game was, the question was simple: how further can the bar be set? Well, the world would soon find out. Itagaki and company not only set out to make the game more graphically better, but they also were seeking to make the gameplay stand out. There were some concerns with juggling what was going on, but once AOU 1999 rolled around, those concerns were quickly eradicated and people's minds were blown away. The competition that was already out looked antiquated, and quite frankly, it felt like the series was ready to take on the next millennium. More information kept coming out throughout the year, and it was even rumored to land on the PS2 in addition to its original planned platforms. As the end of 1999 loomed, more information about DOA 2 and its impending release was revealed. Tecmo even ran a magazine campaign hyping the game up as the most anticipated fighting game of the millennium. Well, not only was it hyped up to hell and high water, it was released again and again and again and again. Dead or Alive 2 was developed by Team Ninja, who finally had their name by this point, and published by Tecmo, with European exceptions of Acclaim for the Dreamcast and Sony Computer Entertainment for the PS2 version. And originally released in arcades on October 16, 1999 for Japan, and sometime shortly after for North America. The updated version, DOA 2 Millennium, was released on January 18, 2000 for Japan, and this version found its way to North American and European shores in the year 2000. A version for the Dreamcast followed in North America on February 29, 2000, April 28, 2000 for Europe, and September 28, 2000 for Japan. A PS2 version followed in Japan on March 30, 2000. This initial release was actually rushed out and very buggy. It would also lock up in Versus mode. This version only got out because one of Itagaki's managers asked to borrow a copy to play, but it was instead sent to production. This actually upset Itagaki, and he was depressed for a bit and even considered quitting the industry. But eventually he was able to release the version for the PS2 he wanted in DOA 2 Hardcore. This version was released on October 26, 2000 for North America as a launch title for the PS2 in that region, December 14, 2000 for Japan, and December 15, 2000 for Europe. It may sound like a lot of versions, but rest assured, you are getting one of the best fighting games ever made regardless of which one you get. DOA 2 improves upon the original in just about every way. Dead or Alive 2 has several main modes of play. Time attack, survival, and team battle return from the original game, and they pretty much function the same way they did in the original. You also have Versus mode to go against human players, and a sparring mode to practice in, aka training from the original game. There are some new modes here to make up for Kumite mode being removed. For starters, tag battle is now a thing in this game, meaning you can select two characters to team up and take on another team of two. Think of it as a shortened arcade mode. This actually limits the stages you can play on in this mode, since if you lose a player character, another one jumps down from above. You can't do that in every stage. You can also just watch two computer players duke it out if you're into that sort of thing. You can also create a user profile to keep track of your stats and stuff like that. Battle Record also exists if you want to record a match or two against a friend or the computer. This mode allows you to record tag and one-on-one matches. You can also watch and practice in tag mode. I'm assuming you can do tag in Versus. The main crux of the game is story mode. This is the sort of new version of arcade, tournament, or whatever you want to call it from the past game. You'll pick a character and play through a select number of matches, 7 stages in total. Well, I say a select number of matches, but by default it's one match per round, so yeah. And each character does have a few instances where they will encounter a key character and there will be a cutscene interaction. These kind of serve as a precursor to the interludes seen in Tekken 5, and unlike other fighting games where you play 2 rounds for 1 match like I said earlier, it's 1 match is 1 round here. Regardless, there still is a lot of story to digest. I should mention in the arcade version you had lives for that sort of thing here, so yeah, when playing story mode. Famed Douglas, founder and CEO of DOA Tech, gets assassinated, presumably by Bayman, after the events of the first game, and the world is set into a frenzy as the second DOA tournament is announced. The new promoter of the DOA tournament, Victor Donovan, who was also responsible for Douglas's death, wants to continue to send the world into a frenzy. At the same time, a mythological creature from Japanese folklore arrives, the Tengu. Full name, Go Hyakumine Bankotsubo. Yeah, I'm just going to refer to it as Tengu for the rest of this review. He escapes to the real world from his world after murdering his leader, and he wants to upheave the human world's peace and stability. At the same time, Doatech has a superhuman development project leading to a clone of Kasumi known as Kasumi X, and another project, Project Epsilon. More on this later. Ultimately, it's up to Ryu Hayabusa to stop the Tengu and bring a sense of peace back to it all. Many of the characters return from the last game, with the exception of Raido and Bayman. Though Bayman is unlockable, he's unplayable in story mode due to his replacement, which is the perfect segue into the new characters. Our first new character is Bayman's replacement, Leon. He's a mercenary and Russian martial arts practitioner from Italy. The love of his life, Rolande, a thief working on the Silk Road, dies in his arms and declares that the man she loves is the strongest in the world. Leon enters to fulfill this mission. Then we have Helena Douglas, a French opera singer who practices Piguan. I cannot pronounce it here, but it's a type of Chinese martial arts here. Piguaquan. I probably butchered that, I'm sorry, but yeah. But she's also the illegitimate daughter of famed Douglas. His death puts her into a despair, and this is further exacerbated by her mother being assassinated during a performance. Helena enters the tournament as she learns the murder of her parents is related to Doatech, and she wants to find out who did this. The last new major character, excluding Tengu, is Ain, or should I say Hayate. Yeah, at the same time of the Kasumi X ordeal, Hayate, Kasumi's older brother, was captured, likely when he heard about what happened when Kasumi was captured, and unwillingly used as a subject in what is known as Project Epsilon. Modifications were made to his nervous system, but there was no improvement from Kasumi X. As such, he was left to die in the Black Forest of Germany, but a key character who came into play in DOA 3 saved him. We'll come back to that later. As such, he ends up mastering karate and enters the tournament to find out about his past. Aside from that, pretty much every character from the past game comes back here, each entering the tournament for their own reasons. Kasumi is trying to find her brother, Genfu still wants the prize money to help his sick granddaughter, Tina wants to become a supermodel, Bass is still overprotective of his daughter, Zack just wants the prize money, Jan Lee wants to be the best fighter in the world, Lei Feng wants to defeat Jan Lee, and Ayane, who's now fully playable from the start, is trying to find Kasumi because she ran away. That's the basic gist of who is here and why they're here. While DOA 2 could have just retread much of what the first game does, it still does to a certain degree. There are actually quite a few new things that make the gameplay in DOA 2 seem much more advanced than its predecessor. DOA 2 pretty much retains the same gameplay seen in DOA 1. The button layout is pretty much the same as the last game. You've got punch, kick, and hold once again. It works the same like it did in the original game, but you actually have 2 hold types here. Offensive and defensive. Defensive holds are done by holding back or forward on the D-pad along with the guard input. This will knock the opponent back, or you can counter damage them depending on what move is inputted. Furthermore, stages have been changed a lot compared to the first game. Rather than the Virtua Fighter 1 and 2 style stages seen in the first game, DOA 2 finally introduces dynamic stages. There are also enclosed stages, something that Tekken 4 would take after 2 years after this game released. But the dynamic ones have multiple levels to them, meaning you're going to start on one level and you can knock your opponent over a railing and they will fall to the next level, taking a small amount of damage on top of what they already got when you first attacked them. These sort of replace the danger zones in the original game stages. I say sort of, since there are still plenty of objects that you can knock your opponent into that will explode when you do so. There's even a stage called the Danger Zone to reflect this. A few other gameplay improvements include a stun system, in which some attacks will stun an opponent, which can allow you to take advantage since they can't guard or attack, but they can hold. And you can restun your opponent for a chain stun. You can also juggle enemies more easily, and each character falls into a weight class now. Heavyweights tend to not go as high when you launch them into the air, and lighter characters tend to go up much easier, meaning some characters are more prone to juggling than others, or getting juggled. And since the controls are pretty much the same as the first game, I don't have much to add here that I didn't already say before. They still work well, it's easy to pull off moves, and I will say the tag mode does allow for tag attack moves. You can throw an opponent and tag out at the same time, and you and your partner will both attack for a brief moment. It's also very easy to tag in and out of matches. There's also a decent amount of parity for the Dreamcast and PS2 versions, since their controller layouts are similar for the most part, and you should be good in this regard with either version. One last thing, the PS2 version does support analog controls, and while you can turn it on to use the analog stick, this also activates the pressure-sensitive buttons on the controller. This means pushing the button with enough force will do a heavy attack as opposed to a standard attack. I'm not a fan of this since it disrupts combo flow, but I wish there was a way to use the analog stick so you can move in 3 dimensions without using the pressure-sensitive buttons. I guess that's what the Dreamcast version is best for. The real improvements in the game come from the graphics. The original arcade versions ran on the Sega Naomi board, aka Dreamcast arcade hardware. It's very clear that Team Ninja took advantage of the hardware boost of the 6th gen when it came to DOA 2. The first apparent upgrade are the character models. They have a lot of the same colorfulness when it comes to their outfits like the original, but the models now look so much more clearer and sharper. It seems a good number of polygons are used in all the right ways to make this happen, though the PS2 version uses field rendering instead of frame rendering, leading to a more aliased look compared to the Dreamcast version. Furthermore, the stages also benefit from this. Objects and environments are rendered better. Furthermore, it actually does feel like you're in the stages, and it's not just some almost endless plane. There's a good amount of variety here in many of the stages. There's variety that each represents the various characters, and it's fun to explore the many levels. We got a Japanese garden, an opera house, a church, a winter mountain, a laboratory, a sunset rooftop, and many more. Not to mention, some of them can be fought in at different times of the day. This actually reminds me, the main graphical difference between the two versions is the lighting. Some say the lighting in the PS2 version causes things to look more drained out, and another precursor to J.J. Abrams' lens flares. True, but the PS2 version does have other minor graphical refinements. Still, both look good. Above all else, the game manages to keep a smooth 60 FPS across all versions. Though the cutscenes in the Dreamcast version only run at 30 frames per second, but this is a minor thing that doesn't affect the game on the whole. The sound design is also another big improvement here. Much of the sound effects remain the same here as they did in the first game, they just sound a lot clearer here. Where the real improvements are, it's in the music. Many of the songs now sound more unique. They also represent the characters, both old and new. And there's just so many bangers on this soundtrack. Come to think of it, everything from the menu music to the character themes you hear when fighting, everything feels high energy, but it combines other styles. Helena's theme, Blazed Up Mellophone, has opera motifs with high energy techno. Makes sense. We get more rock-oriented stuff with characters like Bass, more Japanese-sounding songs with Kasumi, Ayane, and Hayabusa. I think you get the idea. Also, for some reason, the console version features Exciter by Japanese punk band Bomb Factory in the intro. It certainly is a choice, one that grew on me over time. Overall, the music kicks ass. The voice acting, at least in the non-PS2 versions, remain exclusively in Japanese. It sounds pretty good. The PS2 version, and at least every single release excluding the Japanese original PS2 version, does have an English dub, and it's rough around the edges. They didn't even bother having them make their own battle voices, they just used the Japanese ones. The delivery also feels off for some of them, and some voices don't quite sound right, like they just don't fit, some of them. Many of the English VAs don't have a lot of credits. Some actually worked on other games like Legend of Dragoon. The two most noteworthy VAs here are Roger L. Jackson, aka Mojo Jojo and Ghostface, as the voice of Gen Fu, and Terrence McGovern, the voice of Launchpad McQuack from DuckTales and Darkwing Duck, as Bass. They are the best ones here. With the bonus characters, Tengu and Bayman, costumes, CG gallery, and maybe more stuff to do, you'll be here for quite a bit. Dead or Alive 2 is another solid sequel in a sea of solid sequels that outshine the original game in just about every aspect. It looks better, sounds better, plays better, keeps the same solid controls from the first game, while refining them for the 6th generation, has plenty of content to keep you coming back, and just above all else is a really smooth experience to play even 20-something odd years later. However, there are some minor graphical differences between the two versions that may make or break one for some, depending on what you're looking for. The Dreamcast version is the closest to the arcade version since their hardware is pretty similar. And there are some controls hiccups here. Mainly, you have to use the pressure-sensitive buttons if you turn on analog controls in the PlayStation 2 version, making the Dreamcast version probably preferable in the controls department. But really, you should be looking into the gameplay itself, which it still remains on point. There's a reason this game is still held up well after all these years. It's not hard to see why. Regardless of which version you get, you're going to be in for a wonderful time. I give Dead or Alive 2 a 4.5 out of 5. Trust me, we aren't through with the peak of this series just yet. Stay tuned, my friends. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe below and check out the playlist on screen for more content. To help support the show beyond the usual means, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi on the link tree in the description. And come by my Twitch where I conquer my backlog one game at a time. See you in the next video.